Hi there, and welcome to my video on adjective clauses. In this video assignment, I'm going to introduce you to adjective clauses so that you can use these in your summary response papers. First, let's go over what an adjective clause is. Since it's a clause, it must contain a subject and a verb because that's what's required in a clause. Second, this clause acts like an adjective in that it describes a noun. However, adjectives often go before the noun they're modifying. In the case of an adjective clause, the noun that's being modified or described comes right before the clause. Third, adjective clauses are always dependent clauses. That is, they can't stand alone as a complete sentence. Finally, adjective clauses allow you to combine ideas in a way that is more sophisticated than simply using conjunctions. So now that you know what an adjective clause is, let's take a look at some examples. First, we have Tutankhamun, who died about 3,000 years ago, was secretly buried in a small tomb. The subject of the clause is who, and the verb is died. And this adjective clause is describing or adding more information about the proper noun right before it, Tutankhamun. In this next sentence, archaeologists discovered Tutankhamun's treasures, which were still inside the tomb. The subject of the adjective clause is which, and the verb is were. And it's modifying or adding information about the noun phrase that comes right before it, Tutankhamun's treasures. And our last sentence, the hole in King Tut's skull that was made during the mummification process did not kill him. In this adjective clause, the subject is that, right here, and the verb is was made, and it's adding information about the noun phrase that comes before it, the hole in King Tut's skull. So in this video, we're going to take a look at adjective clauses that begin with these three pronouns, who, which, and that. When these pronouns are used in adjective clauses, they're called relative pronouns. Who is used to refer to people, and which and that are used to refer to things. Before we move on, I want you to practice identifying adjective clauses. Each sentence on this slide contains one adjective clause. Please type the adjective clause for each sentence in the box on the left. You will have 5 adjective clauses. Please type the entire adjective clause and check your spelling before submitting. In the next part of this presentation, we're going to examine adjective clauses in which the relative pronoun is the subject of the clause. And then in a second video, we'll look at adjective clauses in which the relative pronoun is the object of the clause. So you can think of sentences that contain an adjective clause as originally starting off as 2 sentences. So here we have 2 sentences about Tutankhamun. Tutankhamun was secretly buried in a tomb. He died about 3,000 years ago. When you see 2 sentences that refer to the same subject, either in your own writing or in an article you want to summarize, you can combine them by rewriting them as a sentence with an adjective clause. So once you've identified that you can combine 2 sentences with an adjective clause, you can replace the subject pronoun he with the relative pronoun who, and now you have the adjective clause who died about 3,000 years ago. Next, you want to place this adjective clause right after the noun that it is referring to, in this case, Tutankhamun. And then finally, you want to add commas before the adjective clause and after the adjective clause. Now let's take a look at a sentence with an adjective clause where the subjects of both clauses is a thing. So here we have two sentences about the hole in King Tut's skull. So the hole in King Tut's skull did not kill him. It was made during the mummification process. We can replace the pronoun it in the second sentence to the relative pronoun which. And now you have an adjective clause, which was made during the mummification process. Next, you want to put this adjective clause right after the subject of the first sentence. So here you have the hole in King Tut's skull. Here in green is your adjective clause that begins with which. And then you have the second part of the first sentence, did not kill him. Once you add the commas around the adjective phrase, you have successfully combined the two ideas into a single sentence. So in the first two examples, we looked at the independent and adjective clauses referred to the same subject. Sometimes, however, the subject of the adjective clause can refer to the object of the independent clause. Let's look at that more closely. So here we have two sentences. Amazon was founded by Jeff Bezos, and he predicted a wealth of internet business opportunities. Notice that the object of the first sentence, Jeff Bezos, is referenced by the pronoun he in the second sentence. Noticing what a pronoun refers to is the first step in being able to combine ideas with an adjective clause. Like we did with the previous adjective clauses, we can change the subject pronoun he to a relative pronoun, in this case, who. The subject who in the adjective clause references the object Jeff Bezos at the end of the first sentence. So that's where the adjective clause is going to go, at the end of the first sentence. So here you have the first sentence, it's in its entirety, and we've put a comma to separate it from the adjective clause that comes at the end. Before you practice combining ideas with adjective clauses, I want to go over subject-verb agreement. The relative pronouns who, that, and which can refer to both singular and plural nouns. So how do you know what verb form to use? To decide what verb form to use, you have to look at whether the noun the relative pronoun is referring to is singular or plural. Let's look at what I mean by this. On this slide, I've written two sentences. Dr. Zahi Hawass, who is an archaeologist, discovered new information about King Tut's family, and the scientists who work with Dr. Hawass are excited about their discoveries. In the first case, who here refers to Dr. Zahi Hawass. Because this is one person, I need to use the third person singular of the verb to be, and that is. However, in the second sentence, the pronoun who, same pronoun, refers to scientists, which is plural. So in this case, I need to use the third person plural form of work, which does not end in an S. Before you practice combining ideas with adjective clauses, I want you to practice choosing the correct verb form. So in this activity, you need to do two things for each sentence. First, you need to choose whether to use who or that, and that goes in this blank right here. And second, you need to choose the verb form that agrees with the noun in the independent clause. That is the noun that the relative pronoun refers to. So here you would have to change, you have to look at the verb buy and decide if it should be buy or buys. So we're using these verbs, we're putting them in the simple present tense. Please type your answers in the box on the left. And as always, check your spelling. Now's your chance to practice combining ideas using adjective clauses. There are some steps that might be helpful to follow. First, identify the pronoun in the second sentence and the noun it refers to in the first. Second, choose your relative pronoun based on whether the relative pronoun refers to a person or a thing. Notice that in sentences 4, 4, and 6, I'm asking you to use the pronoun which. I'll explain this in the use of commas at the end of the next presentation. Third, move the adjective clause so that the relative pronoun follows the noun it refers to in the first sentence. And fourth, add commas when asked to, here and here. Again, number 4 and number 6. Otherwise, you're done. So here in these, no commas. You'll be typing the new sentences with adjective clauses in the box on the left. Please check your spelling, punctuation, and capitalization before submitting your answers. So I hope this video and the exercises were helpful. You're more than halfway through. Give your brain a break before continuing on to part 2.